Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jillian Wagner. We are going to go ahead and get started. I am so excited to be hosting today's From Seed to Plate Addressing the Global Hunger Crisis event. Our mission at Global Impact is to inspire greater giving for global causes, and our hope is that we're living out that mission here with you all today. This webinar is going to be recorded, and we're going to send it out, the recording and the PowerPoint presentation in a follow-up email, so you'll be able to get all of the really great information that's packed in here today. Thank you all for showing up as what we like to call you all as global champions for addressing hunger. Really excited to have you, and I'm especially excited to have our panel of experts who are here to help us learn more about this and engage in this topic. We've got a packed agenda today, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So I want to start with all of you, our panel, giving us a better understanding of what your organization does. So I'll have all of you introduce yourselves to our audience while you go ahead and start off with this first question. So Anne, you're up.
I'm very happy to be here. My name is Ann Hill. I am the Major Gift Officer for Feed My Starving Children, which is a nonprofit that packs meals specifically formulated for malnourished children and sends it to 95 countries around the world through our partners that work in those countries.
Hello, I am Jisabel Garcia Pedroso, Director of Programs and Operations, and Food for the Poor is an international NGO. We were founded in 1982, and we have over 40 years of transforming lives in Latin America and the Caribbean, 17 countries and growing, and changing lives. And we do that through various programs. We do that through feeding. So the next, I think, Jillian, next, there you go. Feeding, food, nutrition, access to safe drinking water, housing, education for children, aid relief, and sustainable development. And we do that also by walking with the poor from their biggest need to feeling empowered and inspired, providing them tools and resources to really break the cycle of poverty.
Barrett.
Hi, I'm Barrett Camry, and I am the Director of Community Marketing for Heifer. Heifer is a global organization founded in 1944 by a farmer who worked during the Spanish Civil War, and he handed out milk to starving orphans. And as he was handing out powdered milk, he realized that the kids did not need a cup of powdered milk, they needed a cow. And out of that, Heifer International was born. Our mission is to end hunger and poverty while caring for the earth. We do this through placing animals and training to families around the world and teaching them how to become smallholder farmers. One of the things that will impact all of us that are on the call today is climate change and how it relates to hunger. With extreme weather and the pandemic that we've seen around the world, it is hard for families to stay safe and to plan for disasters. So much like we do here in the U.S. when we plan for disasters with boarding up for hurricanes or for getting in a safe place for a tornado, we work on ensuring that our project participants not only are great farmers, but that they also have a way to protect and restore their input and their environments so that they can continue to flourish after a natural disaster.
Thanks, Barrett. So like she teed up for us, I think, globally we're experiencing an unprecedented hunger crisis today. Over 820 million people are food insecure, meaning they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And this is sadly after we had started to see declines in hunger rates over the last few decades. And like Barrett mentioned, the pandemic, climate change, conflict, economic shocks, all of these things are coming together to reverse these hard-won gains. And unless we do something about this, we're going to continue to see those unmet food and nutrition needs. So let's talk more about this situation and how it affects each of your work. Anne?
So we, Feed My Starving Children responds to our partners' requests for food. As I said, our partners, including Food for the Poor, work all over the world. And what we're seeing is a huge increase. This year, we will produce about 350 million meals. Our partners are requesting 450 million. Huge gap between what we're currently producing and what the need is. If you go to the next slide, I'll just show you one example of our work. This is Kenya, where we work, and as you know, in February of 2023 is the map on the left. In March and June 2023, you can see the red part, which is the part that went from crisis phase of hunger in the orange part to emergency phase, which is just short of a catastrophic famine. So just in a month period of time, we're seeing a tremendous change towards malnutrition, food insecurity, to almost full-on famine. And that's the kind of situation we're seeing and we're responding to.
Jisbel?
Thank you. So yeah, Latin America and the Caribbean is facing a lot. We have reached the highest prevalence of hunger since 2006. And this has really been further exacerbated by COVID-19 setbacks, disruption in the supply chain, and inflation. And in just 1 year, the number of people living with hunger increased by 13.8 million. That's 1 year. Now, a lot of these setbacks, even in the US, due to inflation, has also caused some impacts to US giving to organizations like ours. And I think, Heifer, you said it right, climate change is threatening developmental gains. It's another issue that we're facing today. And in our region, it's the second most disaster prone in the world, affecting, in a recent report done in 20 years, 152 million people. And the last thing that we're seeing more and more is global and regional conflict and insecurity. Our Latin America and the Caribbean region is even affected by the war in Ukraine. 85% of fertilizers are imported into this region that are used for agricultural production. So we potentially see a critical situation in this region where food crisis will be further aggravated because of this. And last but not least, a priority country for us, which is Haiti. We've all seen the violence and recent insecurity in the region that has also caused operational slowdowns for us. Now, how that affects our work? Well, every type of project we do influences hunger, from infrastructure, water, income generating, and other programs. And of course, poverty is multidimensional. So there is a complexity to hunger, which requires us to have a holistic approach. We recognize the fullness of the person, just like you and I. Not only is it nutrition in our body, but we want to have a healthy mind, encourage that, and also a joyful spirit. So we're looking at the wholeness of the person. And for us, it also affects our supply chain disruption. We've seen that an increase in food prices and also availability of staple food commodities, but it's pushed us to really diversify suppliers. So even though, yes, we've had a lot of challenges, it's really pushing us to even leverage technology where we can. We know now live in an AI kind of world, but it really leveraging that to increase our monitoring and evaluation and pivot wherever we need to and do so quickly.
Barrett?
So much like has been covered by Anne and Isabel, I want to point out that this global hunger crisis is ongoing, and it has grown. It's grown significantly in the last 3 years. One of the things that Heifer does is we do long-term sustainable agriculture. So for us, our programs take 3 to 5 years because it takes a long time to implement sustainable farming. But one of the biggest things that we do is to combat hunger by disaster mitigation and risk management. So what that means is creating seed banks, creating water diversions, training leaders for disasters so that a community who suddenly becomes in crisis now has a leader who can help lead them out. This is one of the things that was key in COVID, because we couldn't get to the field to help our partners, but we were able to communicate to them that there was a global pandemic, and they were able to go out and get supplies and then give them out to people in our projects to say, you need to be wearing gloves, you need to do extra hygiene. And they also created their own small markets, because some farmers had food spoiling and some folks were going hungry. So they created their own system based on things that we taught about taking care of your neighbor, to create their own, food to market chain during that time. One of the things that we really work hard with is to help farmers prepare to withstand shocks, and the shocks can be they can be a disaster. It can be economic. So it's not just creating better wheat or better cows or better chickens, but it's to also use new technology so that they have a way to connect with other people. As Isabel mentioned, natural disaster and climate change is the largest threat to rural farmers in the developing world, and has been for 25 years.
Great, thank you. I'd love for the audience to see more examples of what this work looks like. I mean, you all do so much that it can be kind of hard to visualize exactly what this looks like. So I've asked each of you to pick a country in which you work. Tell us more about what you are doing there.
So Feed My Starving Children isn't really a disaster relief organization. We go into places long-term. We want to feed children, take them out of malnutrition, and help them to get educated and move on to successful lives. We've been working in Ukraine for some time. We started there about 10 years ago when the first war broke out. At that point, we sent 2 million meals into the war area. This year, we'll send 24 million meals into Ukraine and the surrounding countries. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. They send food around the world. That war has really impacted hunger worldwide because so much of their grain, and Russia and Belarus, their grain and their fertilizer really is critical grain and critical food for the rest of the world. I just want to share a story, actually 2 very short stories. We spoke to a man who was receiving our food in Kiev, and he wrote to us and he said, I ate your food and thought why some people send us missiles and want to kill us, while other people send us food and want to support us. Both of them do not know me personally, but thanks to one, I have no electricity and may freeze this winter. And thanks to the others, I can eat delicious food while I no longer have a job and survive. The woman in the picture that you see is named Maria. She carried around with her the empty pack of our food that you see in the picture to the right. She was one of the first people 10 years ago that received our food, and she held on to that empty bag of Manapak rice, which is our primary food. She held on to that and carried it with her everywhere as a sign of God's hope, God's provision. And she brought it with her just less than a year ago to show it to us when we gave her a new bag of Manapak rice. It's full circle. We are there to care for those people, and we'll be there for some time into the future.
And we know firsthand that love from Feed My Starving Children. So Guatemala Food for the Poor works. I wanted to highlight this United for Food project that's going on right now. The project goal is to increase household availability and access to nutritious food through home vegetable gardens to 700 families. We know that food security, right? If we're going to attack hunger and we're going to be food secure, we have to have availability of food. There has to be access of the food and affordability for that family. They need to know how to use it into their daily diets. And then we need stability of all of these stages ongoing. And so next slide, we've been able to go into this project by leveraging partnerships, both public and private, and collaborating also with the local ministries of agriculture, We're providing the families tools in sustainability by complementing with 8 types of vegetable seeds. These pictures that you see here are what they have to start, right? So this project is just starting. We're beginning with identifying the vegetable seeds that complement their daily diet, providing them with agro tools, inputs, and gardening entrepreneurship training, which is the next picture, has also started and been provided. 2 greenhouses will also be built with seedlings that will provide to ensure continued production to that sustainability of the home gardens. And of course, it's nutrition. So we've worked with the community to complement that, but we recognize that now they don't have to go to the market to buy maybe those complementing vegetables. And it also becomes a food savings for them, and they can then redirect that to other priority needs. The next step is to plan for these communities in the next phase to market and potentially sell and transition this to an income generating activity. Therefore, continuing the sustainability and empowering families right there with a local home garden.
So I want to highlight working in India. As everyone knows, India has a staggering population of 1.4 billion, and Heifer's been working there since 1955. One of the interesting, I just put some facts on here about India. 3/4 of that country is surrounded by water, yet they struggle to have clean water. They experience extraordinary events from drought, monsoons, earthquakes. To date, Heifer has assisted more than 755,000 families, training them to create co-ops. Most of them are headed by women for chickens, goats, vegetable production. So we're training them from the start to become farmers with the hope that through their farming training that they will take their small farms, create co-ops, and then those co-ops can create a way to get their eggs to market or chickens to market. So that's kind of a big deal, especially in India where women don't have access or stature. The other thing that we're seeing with India in particular is the seed banking that they do, which India is actually owns one of the largest seed banks in the world. But they're seed banking in mass there so that they can preserve spices and seeds for decades to come. They also are a huge consumer of biogas, something that's not really taken off here in the US, nor would it need to. But biogas is creating power, and it's creating electricity, it's creating clean stoves. It's allowing families not to have to collect wood and allow them to have improved living opportunities. The third thing that I thought was super cool was that when they're harvesting their crops, tiny portions break off, and they call this broken rice. And so it may or may not be rice, but they collect every bit of that, and then they use that to feed chickens or goats, because goats will, quite frankly, eat anything. But it's interesting to see how India uses every part of the plant, not only to stabilize their lives, but to sell, to keep, to harvest, to bake, and finally to feed their animals.
Great, thank you. What's one thing you wish people knew about hunger? Like if they could come away from this webinar knowing one thing, what would it be?
I would say that it's easy to get overwhelmed. Like the problem is so big that a lot of people just say, I can't even deal with that and turn away. When you look at the fact that for example, in Kenya, 95% of the groundwater has dried up. If you look at the situation and the violence in Haiti, if you look at Ukraine, where we had to go from 2 million meals to 28 million meals in a matter of a year, those statistics are in fact huge. But we have to remember that there are organizations and people out there doing great work, including the organizations that are on this webinar. And that when we can provide food as the basis of all development work, we're consistently seeing with our partners in country that food is the foundation of all their work. And once the children are fed, then the mothers can learn how to start a small business, how to have better agricultural practices, how to improve hygiene. And so there's hope. There is a bright future if we all work together.
Well, I think the theme here from all organizations is also that disasters drive hunger. And, you know, I was watching a TED Talk that said there's nothing natural about disasters because it really becomes a disasters. Rain happens, hurricanes, it's all natural. But it's when it intersects with lives and with people that you have disasters. And so one of the things, and I think even Heifer has said it so beautifully as well, is that you know, we need to begin to think about what climate change is doing as it relates to all areas of all of our programs, whether that's nutrition. It really does affect, and 80% of hungry people live already in disaster-prone and degraded areas. And this is an awesome infographic from the World Food Program, where they're basically saying the same thing, right? A disaster strikes, you have these immediate effects. They're desperate measures that families have to make. That means maybe taking kids out of school, migrating into other areas. That's where food and nutrition crisis continues to set in. You have those long-term impacts of malnutrition. And then what happens? Another disaster strikes. And so what I would say is just as much as many of you are probably in, knowing that nutrition is important, we have to think about, well, what is climate change doing in a lot of these areas, and why is hunger increasing? So definitely, I echo all of the voices of the other organizations here, and the fact that we can do it together.
One of the best investments that we found with Heifer is cultivating women leaders. We know that women will invest up to 90% of their incomes back into their families and their communities. The other stat on here is that we currently have 47,000 women who serve as leaders in Heifer assisted entities. Heifer International has long had a track record of promoting gender equity. One of the things that we have seen now as a result of our work in Nepal and India is that while they had some progressive constitutional mandates, they still fell drastically behind on keeping women safe, and trafficking, abuse, early marriage, and very limited social capital. However, we all still have a priority in lifting up women, because we know when we lift up women, they lift up their communities, and by lifting up their communities, they can respond to hunger. As Anne said, if their kids are fed, they can respond to a global crisis, as Isabel said, when they're not worried about how that disaster is going to impact them. So one of the things that we're doing is to make sure that we have women leaders, so they have the social capital and they have the social impact to help lead the world out of this crisis.
I love this because you all kind of teed up this next section quite nicely. So obviously the challenges are great. I'm a glass half full kind of person, and I think we need to remember what's going well and what we're working towards. So tell us something you are excited about. Give us something positive.
One thing that makes Feed My Starving Children a bit unique is that we rely on volunteers to spend a 2-hour shift to pack the meals that we send to 100 countries around the world. Before the pandemic, we were welcoming about 1.5 million volunteers each year, which makes us one of the biggest volunteer organizations in the country. We're coming back. Our volunteers are coming back. This year, we will have about 1.2 million volunteers that'll pack 440 million meals. That is so exciting because half of our mission is to feed the kids in places like Uganda and Haiti and around the world. But we're also feeding the spirits of the volunteers that come in. They're getting just a glimpse of what it's like to live in poverty and hunger and able to do something about it with their own two hands. So for us, that's very exciting to touch people here. And of those 1.5 million volunteers, about half are under the age of 18. So it's literally children feeding children. And if that's doesn't give you hope, I'm not sure what would.
So we're working on building forward better. Partnerships is and are force multipliers. So we're excited about new partnerships and new projects with the World Food Program to address food security. We're also working with World Vision to address disaster rehabilitation after Hurricane Fiona, risk reduction, and sustainable livelihoods in Dominican Republic. We're also solarizing with Water Mission in Puerto Rico, and trying to reinforce this humanitarian development nexus, which really is coming to work together all the way from relief through sustainable development, because we really can't do this alone. And we see that here, even we partner with FMSC and Heifer International. And this is really, it's seen as a new way of working, but we're really opening doors, opening windows for partnerships. And we're excited to be here, share about this work that we're doing together because it has even greater outcomes.
I was so excited to be asked to share what the biggest thing that we're working on right now. And the biggest program we're working on right now, and it is one of the most ambitious we've undertaken, is Hatching Hope. And Hatching Hope targets 100 million families to help them out of hunger and poverty and give them a living income. So that's not just if you've got $2, you're out of poverty, but if you make $2.25, you're still not really out of poverty. We're talking about living incomes. And so Hatching Hope is multi-country. There's a great graphic here about why chickens. Well, they're pretty easy. Chickens are pretty easy. They grow fast. A hen can lay up to 300 eggs a year. So if you've got a flock of chickens, which is about 20, then you're talking about 6,000 eggs a year. And that's a lot of eggs, not only to feed your family, but to sell, and also to get to market to sell. Just this year, Hatching Hope launched in 2022. We just gotten our first milestone report, and we have reached 18.4 million families since 2022. But when you're looking at 100 million, it seems kind of small. But one of the things that we are doing is we're going to increase nutritional awareness, improve our poultry management, create accessible food supply, improve access to markets, and then we're partnering with some of the largest companies in the world to help leverage funds, as well as partnering with local NGOs and worldwide NGOs, because hunger is big, but we think we can do it.
On that note, everyone who showed up here today is already taking that critical step and learning more about this, but what else can we do to get involved? How can we show up for people who are facing food insecurity around the world?
Through Feed My Starving Children, there's 3 ways you can get involved. The first is to volunteer to pack meals. It's just a 2-hour shift. It's very easy to sign up on our website. We have sites in the Chicago area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Phoenix, and Dallas. And then we have what's we call mobile pack, where we take the packing room out on the road and pack in every state in the country. So again, go to our website, click on volunteer. You can see where all the packing events are, and please sign up and come in and help. You can also donate. Every meal costs 29 cents to produce. And so donations are welcome. And finally, we have a great place to shop. If you look at the next slide, we have the Feed My Starving Children Marketplace. We believe in supporting women, which is a theme in this webinar, and we purchase items made or grown by women in the areas that receive our food. They're beautiful items, great coffee, all sorts of things that you can buy in support of the women living in these communities, but also every purchase pays for meals to send out to hungry children. So go to FMSC/marketplace and you can find some amazing items that you just can't find anywhere else.
Well, we invite all of you, like Jillian said, you're already making the impact by being here to stop on by to foodforthepoor.org. You can also, if you're in the South Florida area or Tri-County, you can volunteer with us. So next picture, we have different packing events going on at Food for the Poor, especially now in time for disaster prepositioning. And last but not least, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm sure everyone will get my contact information if you're interested on any of the programs or information shared today. Thank you.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming to the webinar today to listen to us and listen to our passion about our missions, but really to listen about our passion to create a better world for tomorrow. How do you get involved with Heifer? Well, you can. We've got corporate matching gift, monthly giving. There's a whole litany of stuff that we have. Give, give, give. That's always our motto. But you can also just spread awareness and spread information about us through your social channels. We believe that more people who are educated about the problems of hunger and poverty, whether it's for Heifer, for Food for the Poor, or for Feed My Starving Children, which, by the way, I have packed meals for them, and woo, 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 it really does take 2 hours, and you'd be surprised at how crazy fast and how amazingly fun it is. But all of us in the world, in the world that can help, we have a need and necessity and a priority to help lift families out of poverty and allow them to have the same dignified lives that we experience. And so whether you do that with Heifer, whether you do that with Food for the Poor, whether you do that with Feed My Starving Children, it takes all of us to create a solution for hunger and poverty and to allow people to live dignified lives.
Thanks all. I have one more way that everyone can take action today is giving to our End Hunger Fund. So one donation goes to multiple leading organizations addressing this issue. So you're really maximizing the impact of your gift. I've got all of the featured organizations listed here, and you will see that our 3 incredible speakers organizations are included in the fund. So give now to support their work in one simple, easy donation. Melanie is going to drop a link in the chat to the fund, but I've also got the QR code up here. Thank you in advance for supporting this work. We do have a few minutes for questions, and there's a couple in the Q&A, and I saw one in the chat too, real fast. Anne, quick question for you. Can you accommodate large groups at the meal packing locations?
Absolutely. So we have welcome groups of up to 200 people. If it's a mobile pack out on the road, then sometimes we will do 1 million meals in a matter of a couple days. And we've had as much as 3,000 people packing in a huge auditorium at the same time.
Wow.
So it can be one person, it can be a group of 1,000. And the other thing that I love about it is that yesterday I was in the packing room and we had a group of 4th graders and a group of C-suite guys or women from Target. We had a group from our county probation department, and a group of very elderly church circle group. And they're all mixed up, and the interaction is amazing.
Yeah.
Their paths would never cross anyplace else. So yes, we welcome anybody of any age, any background to come and help us pack meals.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to pick, so there's a question on, are there other countries or places where a lot of people are experiencing hunger that we might not know about? I feel like you all could probably answer this question forever, talking about underreported hunger crises, but what are a couple of places that people should go check out and learn more about? Maybe they're not seeing this in the news. I don't know which one of you wants to go first. Maybe Barrett, do you want to go first?
I can go first. one of the regions, this has been in the news since I was a kid, but Ethiopia continues to struggle with problems of hunger, problems of water, food security, and also safe boundaries. The whole Sahel region, in fact, suffers greatly from all of these issues. And if we put a slide up right now, and I'm sure Ann could tell you, but if we put a slide up right now, the Sahel is red, and it is a red emergency for a reason. There is a reason that people made songs about feeding people in the 80s. That crisis has never gone away and will not until we get more NGOs involved in creating water solutions and food solutions for this region.
Thanks.
I just wanted to share in relation to malnutrition and how it affects children. You know, many moms that are also malnourished while they are pregnant and breastfeeding, probably, you know, the older child that may be only 1 year old, but they're pregnant with a second child, that baby's already coming into this world already malnourished, right? And so it affects their stunting, it affects the focus in school. And so programs like the ones we all support here are really addressing not only the mom in many cases with the Manapack as well, but the child, and all the programs that Food for the Poor and Heifer, I'm sure, really addresses all of those stages so that we can give that child that better chance for that next generation and try and break those changes of poverty and malnutrition.
Anne, anything you want to add to either of these questions?
I mean, they're right on. I mean, I think that those are the things we've talked about to understand that 95% of the groundwater has dried up in areas around Kenya. We were recently in Angola, and the most extreme hunger situation that we've seen in many years. So there are a lot of areas that need help and need support, and these organizations are meeting that need.
Looks like there's a question in the chat about essentially this idea of creating like an exchange program on hunger. So I invite all of our panelists to check out that question. And Nicodemus, I'm wondering if maybe you want to reach out to our panelists later and connect with them and start thinking through this, because I can tell you're thinking big here. We're going to wrap up just a couple minutes early. I love giving people back a few minutes in their busy schedules. Thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for taking the time to share this information with us, helping us learn more, helping us think critically about how to engage in this space. And thank you to all of you who joined today. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to join us and really show up as global champions. So again, we're going to send a follow-up email. It's got the recording, it's got the PowerPoint, and we'll be in touch. You can kind of learn more about these organizations. Again, I really encourage you to go check out their work, learn more about them, get on their mailing list, follow them on social. That's a really great way to engage with this stuff. If you are in the workplace space, think about how you can engage your company or your organization with these organizations. Global Impact's always happy to help you plan custom events or organize, packing events and things like that. So reach out to us at engage@charity.org, and we can help you kind of think through that and connect you with these great orgs. But thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I'm just so glad that you all could be here.